All right, listen, everybody. Let me give you an official welcome. Glad to have everybody back in the room. Good to see you all. Really looking forward to seeing whoever can make it this week. We know some can, some can't. For those of you who can't, don't worry, we'll have another time. Lori, you should know that this year we have two mastermind groups going. And so they are going to have separate retreats and a combined retreat later in the year. So you'll have a chance actually to meet folks from the other mastermind group as well. But we also just shared out the mastermind roster for the other group. And so if you didn't get that, click and make sure you have it. And you can certainly, start building relationships with anybody else in the other mastermind group. This mastermind group is most of the same people from last time around and a few new folks, which we're glad to have with us. So feel free, Lori, to reach out to anybody when you like. So you're all talking today about this idea about an ISA, getting the right person, sales skills versus operational skills, et cetera. And it really touches on what we've been talking about recently. The way I say it is the first rule of effective teaming is get the right people on the team. And everybody wants a good team and everybody complains when their team isn't perfect. But, you're the one who hired the people and you're the one who keeps the people on and you're the one who trains them and develops them and all that stuff. And so it behooves all of us to make sure that we're clear on what it is we need on our team and what kind of person we want on the team. And part of that conversation is, what is it that you offer? And so we've been talking the last few weeks about value props, right? Sharing what it is you offer to others. And Chirag has pointed out the difference between perceived value and actualized value, right? Perceived value is what we believe we offer somebody. Actualized value is the actual value that they take from what we offer. So we might think leads really matter, but if somebody else doesn't really care so much about getting leads from us, then that doesn't have much actualized value for them. Similarly, any kind of back office services or something like that, they may not value it the same way we do. And so part of our work is to recognize what is it that the people value who are coming to us, and are those things that we want and are willing to provide. So what we're going to do, to get back to Jess's question a minute ago, we are small today, but we're not going to stay together. We're going to break up for a little bit. What I'll do is I'll cut the time a little bit shorter since we don't have a lot of people. We will spend a little less time in your small group discussions, and we'll come back for a little bit more debrief after that. So in the last session, you guys may recall, Chirag broadened out the conversation about value props to the larger process of recruiting. If you remember, he shared some slides about that. And so, you can look at the core of recruiting and you can say the value prop has to be a part of your thinking, and you have to be clear and intentional about what that is when you start thinking about who to recruit and how to interview them. And so what he wanted to do was have us continue that discussion, broadening it out into this process of recruiting and having you think about how well you've recruited or not recruited in the past. So I have a couple of questions that I want to put out to everybody to explore in your small group discussion. So let me put them in the chat here. We want you to spend about, let's say 20 minutes, should be enough time for this. 20 minutes to think about these particular questions. First, how have you communicated your value to people that you've recruited in the past? That touches certainly on the value prop stuff we talked about last time. Share one thing that has worked well for you to get the right kinds of people on your team. Now, that might not be just something you offer them that's listed in your sense of your value prop. It might be how you found the people in the first place. It might be how you explored the needs that you have and got really clear about what the needs you are for the needs you have for the role that you'd never done before, for example. It could be any part of this process that results in you getting the right person in the door. Certainly value prop is a big piece of that, but you don't have to limit your thinking to that. And secondly, after you've had a chance to go around the circle in your particular group talking about that one, think about it from the other side of things. What's something that you've done or perhaps not done in communicating with potential candidates that's actually ended up with some kind of a failure? That is, you brought somebody on and they turned out to be not the right fit, and you realize you didn't ask the right question, or you didn't ask enough questions, or you just grabbed the first person who came along because you were a bit desperate or whatever. And based on what we've been talking about, getting clear about value props, getting clear about what your perceived value is, and having the right kinds of conversations with people about that, what might you do differently next time around? So I'll leave this in the chat. So Calista, everybody can see the chat, right? Can't they in the peer groups, in the small groups?
Yes.
Yep. So I'll leave those on there. So that's the structure for the conversation, 20 minutes, and then we'll come back here. Any questions about that? Okay, so spend your time on those concepts or something close to that, and we'll come back in about 20 minutes.
Do we have new groups? Sorry, I know you said we're going into groups, but are they changed up a little bit? Because
Calista, what's our status with the groups today?
No, Josh, if you're referring to the email that I sent you, that was just for your group. But everyone else was staying the same. And we have at least 2 to 3 people in each group. So we are going to break out whenever you're ready, David.
Will you just put me wherever I'm supposed to go? Because I didn't see my name anywhere.
Yes, Lori, I messaged you. You're going to be in group 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have a question also, Margot, or are you good?
I thought I was by myself, but I got my girl Lori back, so we're good.
Well, you should know
David,
that Calista will never leave anybody alone. You know, we see who goes where, and sometimes the system, you know, shuffles people around, or sometimes they get thrown back out again. She has to throw them back in. So, you know, certainly we don't want that ever to happen. Josh, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't see the questions in the chat yet. I don't know if you popped them in or not.
Okay, got it. If you want, you could take a screenshot, or you know, whatever you need to think about it. It's pretty simple though, right? The positive part is, you know, what have you done to communicate value? What is it that you've done right in recruiting somebody in the past? That's something that you can share with everybody in your group. Secondly, what mistakes have you made and what would you do differently? That's the gist of the conversation, right? What we're thinking about is, how do we consider our value here, our value prop, and what is it that we're doing right or wrong in bringing the right people onto the team? Yeah, what happened to Jess? Okay, there's Jess. All right. Yeah, okay. No, let's just go with the groups that we have with two or three folks. That's why we're going to cut it to 20 minutes, not longer. Normally, Lori, we're giving people a little bit more time to talk because we have more people in the groups. We have 4 or 5 perhaps. But today, since there's a few, we'll cut it to 20 minutes and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more as a group. Everybody got it? All right. We'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. Angela, sorry you just lost a big deal. We'll talk to you soon.
Sorry, guys. I need to jump. I'll catch up later with you guys.
All right. Bye, Angela.
Bye.
Okay, Calissa, please put everybody into the groups. We'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Okay, thank you.
So because Angela just left, I have to move Brad because he's by himself now. I'm gonna jump into his room and let him know.
Yep. So welcome back. Hope you guys had a good conversation. I'm curious, what was the best idea or perspective that you heard in your conversation about recruiting? And it may be your own. Don't be humble.
I think we kind of talked about in our group that we're not doing a ton of recruiting right now because it's the spring market. So it's like, you're not really the time to be recruiting at this exact second. So that's kind of, we had talked about talking about maybe growing a team eventually or getting less people on a team. But in this exact market, we're not literally focusing on recruiting.
Yep, understood. Did you talk about any past successes or failures in your group?
Yeah, Meg was telling us about a success of her team director, or I think is it the operations?
Yeah, the operations person that I hired, who is absolutely magical. And I think the best thing I did with her was to just be like insanely specific about what I wanted her job to be. And then I allowed her some space to tell me the most important thing that she wanted to get out of this job. And I make sure that we circle back to that every week, and she's getting the training that she asked for. And also doing the job that she needs to do for me. And it's sort of constant accountability because she's always with me, but it's working out pretty well.
Got it. So being very
just-
specific means being very clear too. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Now, I was just going to say, Megan, I love that you said you asked her what was really important to her. Like I was going to throw something in the chat that said, Jillian and Megan, make sure you're paying them well. You don't want to, like whatever, but like for some it's money, for some it's growth, learning, whatever. And like, I just appreciate that you asked them what's important to them and like really zeroed in on that.
It's definitely been helpful for sure.
We tend to forget that a successful relationship is kind of like a marriage, right? It's a long-term exchange of value. And so the best time to understand what somebody else values is before you get into it. If you think of so many, marriages, people get into marriage and then they say, well, what do you mean I can't go out with my boys on Friday night or something like that, right? It's like, yeah, that's an expectation I have of you, right? And so like, what is it that the person wants? What is it the person expects? Zig Ziglar famously said, you can have everything you want in you can have everything you want in life. All you have to do is help everyone else get what they want in life. And so if you think about it from that point of view, it's a great question for Megan to be asking, what is it you want out of this job or out of this life? And let me see how I can help you get it. Stacy, did you have a hand up before?
No, but I'm happy to share.
Okay, go ahead.
I was helped a lot by Kevin and Andrea because I have like an agent who's somewhat new, who is really new to the business and not producing yet. And I was like, I don't know if I care because it doesn't cost me anything. But what I learned is that while I'm giving her some things, I feel like it's my fault because I'm not giving her like specific tasks that she should be doing. I gave her a few and we do a few marketing stuff for her. But I think what I'm going to do is put like a plan of tasks together. And if she's doing them and it's still not working, that's a different conversation. If she's not doing it, then that's probably a good sign she's not a good fit. So I'm gonna be a little more intentional about what I want her to do.
Yeah, got it. I see this gap all the time. I get right to you, Josh. I see this gap all the time between what they call necessary effort and discretionary effort. Necessary effort is the amount of work that you need to do to basically understand or expect that you still have a job, not get fired from whatever your role is. Discretionary effort is the effort you could choose to expend if you were motivated enough on behalf of the organization or the person who's your boss. And so what I see a lot of times is somebody who's just playing at the necessary effort level. And so if somebody's not doing something you want them to do, of course, as a leader, it's your opportunity to understand what does the world look like from their point of view. Why are they choosing not to do what you want them to do? Is it that they don't understand? Is it that they don't care?
I think it's more in this situation, they don't know what to do. And I have not been.
Right. It could be.
Right. And I
It
haven't.
could well be.
Right.
So that's, then that's your opportunity to like meet them somewhere that provides value to them and to yourself, of course. Josh, you had a hand up? And then Margot.
I would just say one of my failures or growth areas in the past, AC, has been like balancing like training and supporting a new agent with like what my bandwidth is. So I don't know if you do this much on your team, but like it can be really helpful to like match a very senior agent up with that agent, like a junior senior partnership. And then they're just like have more opportunities to grow from that person where it doesn't necessarily just rest on you. And there are ways to like look at like the tasks or whatever and find mutual gain, right? Like this person may need to learn how to host more open houses, and this person may need support with some of their open houses or whatever. So like there can be synergies in getting that newbie up to board to take some of it off your back. Just a thought.
One of the biggest mistakes I see is that people bring somebody on board and they have no onboarding plan or strategy. And so the person is just thrown into the business. And, you know, one of the most fundamental questions that you need to ask is, what do you expect of me? Before you bring somebody on, you need to understand what their expectations are and whether you need to decide whether you choose to meet those expectations or if you have a different idea. But the person should come aboard with both of you having the same idea about what those expectations are of your time or your effort or energy or whatever it is that you want to offer. If there's a mismatch there, probably it's not going to work. Either it's not going to work at all, or it's not going to work until you come into alignment about that. Margot?
I was literally just thinking recently how I used to have this mindset of, oh, what's the big deal if they're not, you know, doing the business, it's not costing me anything. And now I have like a number of those people, and it's like, oh my, like I would never take another person that I didn't think was like going to be involved in a culture fit and all of those things. But the reason I'm saying that is because I have asked this before, but I've never really gotten a good answer. I'd love to know, like, what do you do, right? So not everyone can be taught, right? Sometimes this is just not a business for everybody. And, you know, they're out there like not representing your brand well because they're just not there. Like, it's not for them, or it's not for that team or whatever it is. What do you do? How do you like say goodbye to those individuals? Especially people maybe you've known for a really long time, or who are, you know, have a special circumstance. Because it's like, I have a lot of empathy for people, but I also like, I dread when I see them because I'm like, oh, like they're just, I feel like they're a weight hanging on. And I want them to be either gone or better.
Who has a response from Margot?
I think you just kind of hit the nail on the head, Margot, because you're like, you either want them gone because they're not, you know, it's so hard because I have somebody that I'm interviewing later on. I really don't want to take this person on, and I know it in my gut, but she was a past client and it makes it a little bit more awkward. But I think when you're walking into an office and you're seeing that person and you're like, ugh, like the weight will be lifted off you when you know, take care of it. If it's not going to improve, or if you don't see any light at the end of the tunnel from this person, you know, kind of bringing in more business or just being, you know, integrated better into the team, it's like you have to kind of cut addition by subtraction, like you said, Josh.
I know, I guess and it's in multiple situations. I feel like if it was somebody who just wasn't a fit for our team because of maybe where they sell or whatever it is, and I could say, great, you're going to join Stacy's team, or like, here's another option. But people who I just don't have an option for, that's kind of where I get like, it's, you know, I have a hard time with it.
Margot, is there any value that they bring outside? Like, if they're not successful in sales, is there some other value that they're bringing to the team that's enhancing the team in one way or the other?
Like, I have one person, or we have one person like that, who like we would never like think to let go of because they don't bother us. Like, they're lovely, they're a great culture fit, and they are the first person to raise their hand when like an agent needs help with like showings because they're out of town or something, right? But the other people I'm thinking about aren't that. Like, they're just like, they're not, and they don't have anywhere else to go. But I don't want to be like the orphanage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the end of the day, folks, it's a business, right? You have to remember before you bring anybody on, fundamentally, it's a business. This is the problem with going into business with your friends and family, right? Everybody says, don't go into business with your friends, or don't go into business with your family.
To be clear,
It doesn't always work out. So, pardon?
To be clear, I was not talking about Kevin.
Yeah, no worries, right? I know it's rare that, you know, a wonderful like fantasy dream story actually comes out like Margot and Kevin, but in so many cases there really are problems, and you know the road to hell really is paved with good intentions. But, you know, one of the important things to think about here is that the success in navigating a situation like that often comes before you reach that point. For example, should I really have hired this person in the first place, right? Am I doing somebody a favor, or is this really for the business? If you're doing somebody a favor, you have to think really carefully about it. But if it's for the business, you have good reason to hire a person, that's fine. If the person starts not performing in the way that you would like that person to perform, there's 4 things that you can do. You can realign, that is, have a conversation about what it is that you expect from that person and what it is they expect from you. You can reassign, which is put them somewhere else if you have the space. Retrain, which is allow them to gain some new skill or capability that allows them to do some other role that they might not be suited for today, but could be 3 months from today. Or release. Those are really the options: realign, reassign, retrain, or release. And the release part, often, you know, if you look in the corporate model is that they have conversations long before they release somebody, right? And they say, here's where you're measuring up, here's where you're not measuring up. We're going to put you on this kind of a developmental plan where we're going to watch you for the next 6 months. And over the next 6 months, here are the targets that we expect you to hit. And if you don't hit those targets in the end, then we're going to have to release you. And people know that it's coming from that point of view, right? It's not like you have to spring it on them. And so you should consider, Margot, and everybody, the possibility of having conversations ahead of time about what your expectations are and where the person's not meeting them, right? It's very different to be able to say, 6 months ago, we had a meeting and we all decided that, you know, I need you to do X, Y, Z. And here we are, we haven't seen that level of performance, versus saying out of the blue, this is not working.
Even simpler than that, would say, if you're having these feelings now, you're going to continue to have them, right? This is not going to go away in 1 year. And so like the question really becomes, do you take action on it now and sort through it and get it off your back? Or is this a thing 1, 2, 3 years from now you're dealing with then? Because like, if they're not producing and they're not like bringing the action on culture and they're, you know, like making the team, then it's just not meant to be. I think it is hard. I suck at it. This is very much like a take my advice and I don't always follow it situation. From what I'm hearing, it doesn't even sound like, or like the conversation's important, but it doesn't sound like a retrain situation. You probably know, right? And so it's either you do it now, or you're back down this path complaining about it 2 years from now, and then you do it. It sucks. And just to let you know, like, I'm having a very challenging moment in my team where I've been stuck on something for a couple of years. There's something in the contracts that I need to take back and deal with from the agents. And I've been punting that conversation down the road for a couple of years now, because like those conversations suck, right? And it usually blows up, and then there's some drama and some cleanup and blah, 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 but it like has to happen and it's weighing me down. And so now I'm like sorting through that and dealing with it. But like, that's my gut is that you kind of know what to do, and it's just going to be a crappy thing, but will help you over the long term. One less thing to stress about.
Go ahead, Lori.
That's what I was gonna, there's 2 things related to that. When I was on the call with Margot, we talked about, sometimes you know from the very beginning what the issue is going to be. Much like a relationship, you kind of know at the beginning what the red flag is, and sometimes you'll overlook it. So I did finally get rid of somebody after 3 years that it was more of an attitude thing. It was a bad culture fit. It was a fabulous employee. And it's one of those things where, you know, those 4 quadrants where you've got a great performer, but a bad attitude. And I finally got rid of him, and it was very tough, but it has changed the whole feel and attitude of everything, of me, of my wanting to work, of me not having to hide, cancel meetings because I don't want to be in them because of that bad feeling. I was even telling Margot, sometimes he'd have my location and I would sneak to lunch and get rid of my location so I didn't have to have that bad attitude around me. So when I finally dealt with that, it was life-changing. It lifted such a weight off. And then back to what you're saying, Josh, when I was meeting with Rory recently, and we were talking about some of the reasons I left and some of the changes that I made when I came back. Exactly what you're talking about, that conversation you have to have about the contract. So one of the problems we were having here in our departments is that everybody got used to, and it was fine to work out of the office. So it shifted our culture. People, the marketing team and some of the staff wasn't getting enough done, shifted the culture. And so Rory, Heather, and some people here said, look, we need everyone back in the office. And of course, like you, when we change this, it's going to really upset a lot of people and we're going to lose some people. And so it was a tough conversation, and they mentally prepared, look, we're going to lose 70% or up to 70% of the people. But then when we rehire, we're going to rehire people that have a different expectation. And so it will change the attitude. So sure enough, they did that. They lost exactly what they expected to lose. They brought in a new crop of people who were excited to work in the office, excited to be a part of that culture. And it has now shifted the whole feel of our Compass offices here by having people here that are aligned from the very beginning as to what their mission is, what their description is. So there's just two things hanging over your head that need to be dealt with. Just deal with it. It was life-changing for me. I mean, partially probably why I left. I had such a bad attitude, and I had this negative person and negative thing weighing me down. And he happened to be my director of operations. You know, nothing mean against him. He's a wonderful human being, but it was just a bad culture. If it has to go, it was life-changing. Change it, get rid of him, and have that conversation, Josh, because it also changed the whole culture here at our Compass Cherry Creek office by pulling that thing out of the contract, addressing it, and then bringing in a crew that had the new expectations.
I've seen it time and time again. You pull somebody out who's not the right fit for the team, and it changes the whole atmosphere of the team. You know, you can replace somebody who's that difficult team member or that non-participatory team member with even an average team member, and that's still a huge upgrade. You know, you don't even have to hit the home run with the replacement. You just need somebody who's like serviceable or decent. But I can't tell you how many times I've had leaders talk to me and tell me how much regret they've had after they finally did something that they should have done 3 years ago.
Yep.
You know, they'll say, you know what, I put it off. I was hoping it was going to change. I was hoping this magically it would shift somehow, and it didn't. And I finally got rid of the person, and now I'm so glad I did. I should have done it 2 years ago. It's one of the toughest things, obviously, what you've brought up here, Margot. And it's also one of the most important. Remember, in the end, it's a business.
Yeah, but I will say what I have learned is that from this is I am very critical of hiring, especially agents. And I like from the very first conversation, because I like dread this feeling of having somebody that I then have to have the uncomfortable conversation to be like, you got to go. So that is the good that's come out of it, right? Is that I am like, you have to be like amazing. And so, you know, like it's funny not to go over, but we recently took on over the past 6 months, 2 very experienced agents within Compass who basically like are my peers who are very successful agents who didn't want to be team leaders anymore. And actually Allison Goodhart reached out to me and she's like, how are you hiring all of these people who like are great and like established and whatever? And they're like my friends and they basically just don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, this is the key though, because Eliza Michaels, who many of you may know from Sky or whatever, she was like, I feel like this is a thing. Like, I feel like there are a lot of other Elizas or her out there who like they're experienced, they're good at this job, but they don't want to do this anymore. Like they don't want to be responsible for people and for systems and all this stuff. And I feel like we're going to see more and more of that from like people in their like late 30s through, you know, early 50s, especially. So maybe we look for those people instead.
Well, thank you, Margot. We'll end on that positive note. Listen, everybody, great to see you all today. Looking forward to seeing you again on the next call. And for those of you who can be with us in Connecticut in the next couple of days, looking forward to seeing you then.
Thank you.
Great time, everybody. Yep. Take care now. Bye-bye.